Hello, brilliant and embodied souls. My name is Kim. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a tag. I am so excited. It is a response to Catamancy Tarot, aka Joniki, or I guess it would be the other way around. And the tag is, if you could read tarot for anyone. I love this idea. I've thought about this actually, not to the extent that this tag has invited me to think about it, but it's fascinating to consider what decks we would use for historical figures, people we admire, etc. So I am super excited to do this tag. I will include the prompts in the description below, as well as a link to Joniki's original video, so you can follow along if you happen to find the tag vis-a-vis me. But who am I kidding? I'm a super small channel. You'll probably stumble upon this yourself. Let's get into it. So the first prompt is, what deck would you use to read for a friend or partner? And I would use the Mary L to read for my husband. So here's the deal. My husband loves art. However, he is kind of creeped out by tarot and oracle. He actually had a profound reading several years ago from me, and it just hit him so in the heart, so in the head, so in the intuition, that it kind of freaked him out. He's also not into spirituality in the way that I am. He's much more of a Zen practitioner and finds his spiritual connection in nature. Not that I don't. However, he's just not into the esoteric and occult things that I am into, which is cool. However, I do occasionally show him a tarot deck or oracle deck that comes into my collection. And I did show him the Mary L when it first came in, because I thought he would be very enamored with it. And he was. He looked at all of the cards, spent time looking at the cards. He's a deep feeler. So this deck really, really spoke to him. Even though he doesn't necessarily connect with a lot of the symbolism within this deck, he understood its language, which was really, really fascinating to me. There's something in this imagery, something in the symbols that resonated with him, despite him not spending the time and effort to get into, what's going on in this Eight of Cups or this Empress card. The Mary L is just such a gorgeous deck, and I would be honored to read for my husband with this deck. That said, I don't know if I would read for anybody else with this deck. This deck tends to be just a me deck, in part because the symbolism is so rich. So I like taking my time with this deck. I really enjoy the guidebook. The guidebook is just so phenomenal. I like reading the guidebook. So when I use this deck, I tend to want to bask in the images, sink into the images, really spend quality time, which makes reading for others with this particular deck just not in the cards. Okay, let's keep moving. The second prompt is a family member. And I have always wanted to read for my sister, and I would use the Unfolding Path Tarot. This is a mass market deck. The Marielle is as well. This deck is just so relatable. And my sister is also not really into the things that I'm into. She is such a relational person. The people in this deck would really speak to her. She loves colors like this, soft colors. She's a very grounded and practical person. The messages from this deck are also very grounded, very practical. When I read with this deck, the messages are just boom, there they are. And yet this deck speaks in a very friendly manner. There's no like bam, ouch from this deck. Even when the messages are challenging, it's delivered in such a way that is digestible, understandable. This deck is not going to overwhelm the querent. This deck understands that people need to receive information in ways that are manageable to them. For that reason, I really enjoy reading for other people who don't necessarily have a lot of experience with tarot with this deck. So my sister would be into it for that reason. To my knowledge, she's never had a tarot reading. So this deck feels like a great beginner intro type of deck to use with someone who is getting their very first reading. And especially if that person is a little unsure of what tarot and oracle decks can offer. I think this deck would be a phenomenal gateway deck for somebody who is brand new to the practice, brand new to an experience like that. Okay, let's keep this moving. The next prompt is a pet. So what deck would you use for communicating with a pet? I would choose the Solitary Witch Oracle for my cat Lima, who you may have seen in various videos. She is just the sweetest, most gentle cat. Some cats are fierce. Some cats are feral. Other cats, even if they are indoor cats, are very mischievous. Lima isn't really any of those things. She's a lot like this deck. She's very sweet. She's very comforting. She's very intuitive and soft. She's a little bit of a scaredy cat. I want to share a little bit about her in this moment. I adopted her via my cousin, who is a veterinarian, and I got her when she was very young, only maybe 6 months old. But she was a part of, my cousin needed to find a home for her. And I just fell in love with her the moment I met her. But it was clear to me and to my cousin that she needed a special home. She had maybe experienced some kind of traumas. She wasn't, malnourished or anything like that, or, bedraggled, but, she had just been, she was the runt of her litter. It just seemed that she had been neglected. So she has a very gentle nature, and yet she loves being around people, but she susses people out. She is not going to get down with everyone, even though she's very, very friendly. She watches, she intuits, she's kind of witchy. She knows when to show up. She knows when to make herself scarce. She knows when I need her. She's such a special cat. This deck has a lot of those types of qualities. It also has a lot of cats in it. My sense is that Lima isn't so much a tarot kind of cat. She would be into oracle messages. Look at the kitty. Yeah. This deck has really lovely grounding messages. It does have some truth to share. It's not all sweet. It's not all love and light. There are, I wouldn't call it hard-hitting messages by any means, but this deck will offer guidance in ways that you might need. But again, in a way that can be received, in a way that can be digested. Yes. I think Lima will absolutely communicate with me via this deck. And in fact, she came up to say hello, to denote her approval. Okay. We've got our fourth category, and that is a musician. So if I were to read for any musician, I would choose the Caitlin Madison Tarot to read for Grace Slick. Excuse me. She is, of course, the lead singer of Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship, and then just Starship. This deck is so rock and roll, however, psychedelic rock and roll. There are some punk flavorings within here. However, it feels so rock to me. I love this deck for its fashion sense. Grace Slick was known for her aesthetics, certainly her voice. Her voice is so commanding, so ephemeral. This deck has those qualities. It is commanding. It knows what it wants you to know. It is totally willing to take you on a trip. There's like some punk references. I think Grace Slick could appreciate and understand those types of references. There's this otherworldly quality to Grace Slick's voice, as well as the lyrics of many of her songs. This deck has some of that otherworldliness. It's just so fashionable. It's like an it person deck. Grace Slick was an it person in her day. It also has a lot of feeling to it, though. The messages of this deck are straight up. However, there is some whimsy, there is some mystery, there's depth to this deck. It's not just pretty, it's not just cool. Yes, it is pretty, it is cool. However, there is depth within this deck. I believe Caitlin Madison, the author, lives in Northern California, so it also has a California vibe. Grace Slick, of course, was part of the psychedelic rock movement in San Francisco. All of that is a big part of why I was drawn to living in Northern California. I think a lot of people might resonate with that. Caitlin Madison also does rock concert posters, so that just feels like the spirit of this deck and the spirit of 1970, 1960s, 1970s psychedelic rock is just thrown without. But rock in general, right? We've got some like 80s hair. Grace Slick, of course, continued her career well into the 80s. It just feels, I just feel like she would be into this. I think she would feel seen by this deck. Next up, we have a actor or performer. So I've been really feeling the need for some laughs given the collective weather. So I chose a comedian. So one of my favorite comedians is Eliza Schlesinger. I hope I said that correctly. I feel like I always mess up her name. She has a couple of Netflix specials. She is an elder millennial, much like myself. I love her humor, and so I would read for her with the Tarot Erotique. This is also a San Francisco-based or Bay Area-based creator. The thing to know about this deck before I get into why I would read for Eliza with this is that it is super erotic. There are full frontal images within the deck. It's not really for the faint of heart. So if you find that type of imagery triggering, you've been warned. I've actually taken a lot of the full frontal and most graphic cards out to show you all. Just to be mindful of people's sensitivities and just being aware of the YouTube algorithm, frankly. Just know that this deck is incredibly, I feel like it's funny. I mean, it's super funny. It's also very drag. So I love RuPaul's Drag Race. So I would read for any of the contestants on that show with this deck. But I think Eliza would really understand this deck, understand its humor. She is a very physical comedian. She uses her body a lot in her stand-up. This deck is very much about your body, your sexuality, your sensuality, eroticism. A lot of her jokes are about dating, going out on the town, girls' night, that kind of stuff. I think she would also appreciate the queerness of this deck. I don't think she identifies as queer, but nevertheless, she's an elder millennial and lives in Los Angeles, and just, her humor, she gets it. This deck would be perfect for reading for her, I think. So again, I also think that I mean, RuPaul herself would probably be into a reading from this deck. So I guess I'm kind of tossing in a couple of performers into this category. Tarot Erratique is going to do it for anybody who is a big personality. Next up, we have a author. So if I were to read for any author, who would I choose? This was very difficult. I love reading. I've always loved reading. I have many, many favorite authors. However, in keeping with, again, the collective weather and what I've been feeling lately, I need some humor. I need some lightheartedness, but also some depth. So I would read for Tom Robbins with the Tantric Dakini Oracle. This oracle is so bizarre. It's funny. It's weird, right? Dangerous Pussy, the past. If Tom Robbins saw that card, he would laugh. Dangerous Pussy could honestly be a title of one of his books. So if you're unfamiliar with Tom Robbins, when did he get his start? I mean, he's been writing probably since the 70s, 80s, 90s. Interestingly enough, his work, although kind of dated, right? He's a product of his time. He's a dude from that era. But his writing is still very progressive. There's a lot of different types of characters within his novels. His novels are super funny. I mean, I will just laugh and laugh and laugh. However, they are so character driven. The characters are amazing. It's also philosophically driven. He is a deep, deep thinker. And when you have somebody who thinks spiritually, thinks societally, then thinks in terms of humor and story and narrative, you have a potent, potent combo. I love his books because they are so multi-layered. They're entertaining. They're thought-provoking. They are written phenomenally. The settings, the plot, everything is just on point. Granted, you have to be a certain kind of person to get on with his books, just like you have to be a certain kind of person to get on with this deck. But I think a lot of people within the tarot community would be into his novels because they're into this deck. The humor of this deck is apparent, but it also it can be serious, right? It delivers poignant messages, important messages, but does so in a playful, whimsical kind of way. Tom Robbins' books are exactly like that. I think he would be into this particular deck for sure. Next up, we have a fictional character, and I would go with Clara from The House of Spirits. That is one of my favorite novels. It is by Isabel Allende. She is a Chilean-American author who writes a lot of magical realism. Clara, who's one of the main characters in, I think it was her debut novel. The House of Spirits was, I believe, her debut novel. Clara is into spiritualism. She spends all kinds of time reading the cards herself. her plot line in the book. So the book covers maybe 3 generations of the family. So she's the first generation. So the Thoth Tarot would actually be more in her granddaughter's era. However, if Clara lived, and that's not a spoiler alert, right? The book makes it clear that this is a generational story, a multi-generational story. If Clara lived to see the Thoth Tarot be published, she would be super into it. This is right up her alley. The symbols would captivate her. She does all kinds of seances and kooky magical workings in the novel. I think she would totally get this deck, and this deck would get her. This is a greenie that I found for a reasonable price on eBay. I really love the softness that comes into the color palette. I think especially a greenie would resonate with Clara. I'm describing only one facet of her as a character. She goes through many stages within the book, which is exciting. I love when characters start off one way and evolve into something else. She can be very practical. She can get her hands dirty. She does within the novel. So this deck would also resonate because it's asking us to get practical, like ground ourselves in our magic, but then like do something with our magic. I think that type of energy would resonate well with Clara. Okay, next we are going to move on to our 8th category. I should have said this earlier, there are 10 categories. So we are moving right along. Our 8th is a artist. So if I could read for any artist, what artist would I read for? And that is going to have to be Valley Myers. And I would choose the Larkos Tarot. Valley Myers is actually represented in this deck. Maybe we will come across that card. Carmen Sorrenti, the artist of the Larkos Tarot, was a great admirer of Valley, hence her being included in the deck. Valley Myers is a esoteric, whimsical, magical artist. She has a biography out there, or is it I'm not sure if it's a biography or an autobiography. I need to look into that. I really would like to read it. She strikes me as somebody who probably read the cards herself, would be absolutely receptive to a reading. This deck would speak to her. I have another deck that I think Valley would really love, but it's not out yet. There's a Kickstarter campaign being launched, I think later this spring, for the Conjunction Tarot. The Conjunction Tarot looks like Valley Myers' art. I think Valley Myers would be absolutely enamored with the Conjunction Tarot if she herself, to my knowledge, she did not create a tarot deck, but I think if she was alive today, she would do a tarot deck. And I could see it looking a lot like the Conjunction Tarot, which is why I'm really excited about that campaign. Definitely check it out. Anyway, back to the Larkos. This deck is just really multi-dimensional, just like Valley. The artwork is all over the place, but there is definitely a rhyme to the reason, a method to the madness, if you will. The majors are all done in acrylic paint or more painterly, whereas the minors are watercolor and sketches. That makes it really interesting to read because you can clearly see when you're getting a major card as well as when you have minor cards. There's a lot of really well done symbolism within the deck. So the swords have these like little angel dagger things. The deck itself is very dreamy, very symbol based. I think a lot of artists would be into the deck because of that symbolism. This is one of my all-time favorite decks. The artwork is just so emotional. It gets into the subconscious. I've had dreams that reference this deck. It's powerful. Okay, I do want to find Ballet's card. Looks like this is going to be a flip through. A speed flip through. Here we go. Yay, we found it. Here she is. Here's Ballet. She was such an innovative person. I have so much respect for her. She wanted to be herself. She was thoroughly and intoxicatingly herself. That is such an admirable quality. That this deck has that quality, right? This deck is like, this is who I am. If you don't vibe, that's cool. I'm just gonna be my badass self. You either get it or you don't. Our 9th category is a historical figure. So some of you who have maybe been here for a minute, granted I don't have that many videos up, but some of you might know that I'm a psychotherapist. So I would really need to have a chat, have a read, have Carl Jung himself over, and I would use Kim Kranz's archetype deck. I would be very curious to get Jung's take on this deck. Aesthetically, I think he would be into it based off of the Red Book and the rawness within the Red Book. I think he would appreciate this deck. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oops. All right. Actually, this is perfect. So I have this deck divided into its categories. So this category is sort of like the deep meaning category. The deck has, of course, archetypes. It has places, tools, and then sort of the deeper meaning, the purpose. So if I were reading for Jung, and actually what I've been doing lately is I have the deck sorted into those categories. So there's a special reading that comes described in the guidebook where you look at what's the main archetype, what's the site or landscape of the story, you know, of the hero's journey, if you will. What are the tools involved? And then finally, what's the overall grand purpose of the question at hand, or, you know, the archetypal path. Jung would be super into receiving that reading specifically. In reading for him with this deck, it would be an opportunity to explore his thoughts on archetypes. Can Jung be a problematic figure? Controversial? Yeah. He again was a person of his time. We all are influenced by maybe the shortcomings or the short-sightedness of our cultural trappings. Nevertheless, he would appreciate a reading from this deck. Maybe a final word. I am not a Jungian analyst. That said, there's so many things that come out of Jung's work that remain profound and relevant. Even if some of what he wrote was problematic. Here, like specifically, here, I'll just give you an example, right? He has a book on Kundalini. Well, I mean, like, did he actually know enough about tantric philosophy and Southeast Asia philosophy to write a book like that? I don't think so. Did he maybe perpetuate certain problematic ideas about cultures that he was not familiar with? Was he culturally appropriating? Great inquiry. I guess I'm willing to forgive or be aware. I need to and want to be aware of his shortcomings and the problematic aspects of his work, so that I can appreciate the profound ideas he injected into the world. The idea of the collective conscious, as a primary example, the idea of archetypes. These ideas were and are still revolutionary ideas. He would appreciate a reading from this deck, I think. Okay. We've come to our last category, and this is a bonus category. So this is really anything that we want to add to the conversation of who would you read tarot, if you could read tarot for anyone, who would you read it for? So I think, oh gosh, I'm putting this in the, hold on. If I could read for, I guess I kind of approached this category in a similar way that Janaki Catamancy Tarot approached it. What's a way that maybe I could influence the world for better if I was able to do a reading or readings for a specific person or even group of people? And in looking at my tarot collection, a deck jumped out to share. And that deck is the Mary Magdalene Oracle. And I would use this deck maybe alongside other decks to do a reading for the First Nicene Council and the Roman Emperor Constantine I. Those folks got together and decided what was what with Christianity. They were the people who institutionalized much of Catholicism and Christianity. That council led to the degradation of women. That council set up Christianity in a way that is, in my opinion, antithetical to Christ's teachings. That council began the process of using Christianity, and again, using these beautiful teachings from a clearly evolved person, and persons, right? Mary Magdalene also being one of these people, right? A very evolved person, using their names, using their contributions to humanity in order to further political agendas that were antithetical, again, to those teachings. It's my feeling that if Christ actually does come back, for whatever, the second coming or whatever, and Mary Magdalene would be there, because let's face it, they were lovers. She was a big part of his teachings. I would say she probably was an equal part. If the two of them were to come back, they would be aghast at what has been done in Christ's name. And I guess in reading for the council, I would hope to influence them away from some of those decisions. And I mean, this is so grandiose, like as if I could do that with tarot readings, but again, I'm just being real wishful thinking here, right? If only, this is a fantasy, but my fantasy is that, wow, if I could travel back in time, actually influence in this way, how many people's lives would be better? How many people would be alive? It would be a giant ripple through human history. 1,000 years of human history could be made better, could be made more, bringing in a world full of more equality, more diversity, more love, more compassion. Yeah, I'm being super grandiose. But hey, it's my video, and I I get to wish for what I wish for. Well, okay, that does it. I can't wait to see other people's videos. I wanted to do my own, to not be influenced, pick my people, share my decks and everything. But now I'm going to turn my attention to checking out other people's video responses. And it's been so much fun hanging out with you. Like, subscribe, leave me a comment, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next video.